I feel like I don't ever turn off the author switch. Wake up in the morning, I think about like, okay, I have to, complete this. I have to complete this. I got my job, my family, but everything else is just kind of like I'm always writing, even when I'm not. When I go on vacation, I bring it all there.
Welcome to the Fearless Living Podcast.
Welcome to the Fearless Living Podcast. I'm your host, Annie Temple, and today I have the privilege of interviewing someone in the writing and publishing world, a fellow author, William Burkhardt. He began his journey as a self-published author in 2014 with his debut novella and a prequel novella that followed in 2016. It wasn't until around 2020 that William's author journey really started to pick up steam when he began publishing from his collection of short stories, the Book of Deathly Anagrams. Oh, that's the Book of Deathly Anagrams, his collection of short stories, publishing ebooks and audiobook formats of A Third of Infinity, Priori, and his most popular work of fiction, The Anteater King. I checked that one out. Aside from his 5 books and 3 audiobooks, William has editing credits in several books. He is also an editor for hire, providing affordable services for indie authors. He is a husband and a father to 2 beautiful children. Welcome, William. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that intro. That was very kind of you.
Ah. So I'm going to just ask you to tell me a little bit about yourself, like who you are. Like, so we got an idea of what you do and you're a husband and father, but you know, who are you?
That's a good question. Who is anyone, right? Yeah, I kind of started writing when I was about seven, first grade, something about that. And at the time, obviously, it didn't really like, when you're seven and something happens, like, oh, this is what I would like to do when I'm 42. Following that, I started playing piano. Um, And from that point on, up until about the age of 30, I was like about 99% sure I wanted to be a musician. In about third grade, I started playing kind of those, like they have trumpet and trombone, kind of those things that they offer in school. And then when I was about 14, I started like a rock act with people. I played drums in it. I played tons of instruments. And that was, like I said, something I was very certain that I wanted. Um, like I would always write, but it was always just kind of like a side hobby, I suppose. It was kind of always there. Yeah, when I was 16, the people I played with, like we actually went to a studio. This is when they still had the real, like the old style recording. So yeah, by the time I was 17, I did have two studio albums. We played a bunch of shows. That was good until about age 30 when I don't really know if it's just the process of sharing the creative process with multiple people or just the fact that I was tired of loud sounds. I'm getting old and it's hard to find time, especially with children, like, between the three people I was playing with, we have 7 children. So it became very hard. And yeah, the author thing just kind of happened. I don't want to say by accident. It just kind of started out. I was writing fan fiction, and a couple pages turned into a chapter, a couple chapters turned into half a novel, and then it's like, wow, I got a 30,000 word thing. It's like, let me see about publishing, and it was one of those things that happened so fast. And as soon as I had like my first copy of my first novel in my hand, sounds very poetic and kind of cliche, but something kind of happened, and I was just like, I'm pretty sure this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I don't really have to have like, outside inputs. It's just whatever I want. It's very convenient and also it's more like honest than when you're playing a song. Like you really have to pour yourself into something that you're writing.
Mhm.
And yeah, ever since then, I try to write every day, um, which is hard with a 10 and a 5-year old and a full-time job and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, I am still very into, like art and songs and stuff like that, but I've just kind of compacted all of my, you know, like my artistic efforts into one thing. And it's funny, you always hear like stand-up comedians say like, if you're not going to put 100% into this, it's not going to really work. I mean, you see a lot of people, they write like one or two books, which I mean, I'm not poo-pooing on them, but it's like I don't want to run, like I don't want to take my foot off of the accelerator at this point. I just want to write and write every day as much as I can. Um,
I feel you.
I just when I'm at my 9 to 5 job, I'm just always like I could be home right now, creating something or helping somebody with something or making covers on Canva. And I'm at the point in my life where I really would like to just make this my only job, but it's unfortunately there's a lot more poor starving authors than there are, Stephen King's and
It's definitely a
the
process.
like. Yeah, it's again very poetic kind of cliche, but it is a labor of love. If you don't like I can honestly say, I mean, obviously I love selling, audiobooks and novels and stuff, but if somebody came out to me and said like, look, you're never gonna sell another novel, another audiobook, I would probably still do it. And I can't really say that for almost anything else, except for being a family man. Like I love this and I can't not write. It's just I guess this is who I am. I don't know.
That's exactly how I feel. And honestly, I only just started in the last few years trying to become a published author, but I've been writing my whole life. And if anyone ever asked me, I would say I was a writer.
Yeah.
But I just never pursued it. I never went after my dream. It took me getting a little older and going through a lot of health issues and whatnot to get to the
Hmm.
point where, okay, now I have the time, the energy, and the capacity to do this. I'm going for it, and
Yeah.
like you're right, like when you have it in you. And something else I noticed is that people who are creative in so many different areas. We don't usually just have one area, and you prove
Right.
so much. And I
Yeah.
also knew when I was like 6 or 7 that I wanted to be a writer. So that is so crazy.
Yeah, like I remember taking like it was just like a little 1 page story and like taking it to my teacher and be like, "Look, I wrote a book." And they're like, "Oh, that's great." Like, "Okay, cool." Um, but yeah, just like like the publishing part, it literally just kind of happened. I describe it as pulling the trigger. It was like, "Okay, I have this thing. I think it's prepared." It's like it's just taking that step. Um, and just becoming an author. It was literally it's like I tell it as pulling the trigger because that's what it felt like. It was just like, and then suddenly I had it in my hand. It was like, wow, this is very cool. Like this is something I could tell my son. I could tell my mom, and they're like, oh, my son's an author. It's so cool.
Yeah,
Um,
that's so
but
true.
yeah, it just kind of happened. It kind of the same thing with the editing process. It's something that just happened by accident. Um, I had a friend who was at my 9 to 5. He's friends with this one person who's got like he has almost 5 million subscribers on his YouTube page. And it was someone who I'd followed, and so like I just sent him like a random email. I was like, hey. I work with your friend, da 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 da. I've been watching you for, since you started out on YouTube. And at that point, that's of course when I started trying to sell him. I was like, hey, here's my novels. I'm trying to sell him my novels. And he came back to me like 2 weeks later and was like, I'm actually trying to create a novel myself. I don't really know, what to do. I was like, oh, just send it over. I'll take a look at it. Just like I didn't have any intention of, okay, I'm going to edit this thing. I just kind of looked through it. I was just like, like this part is weird. and this has to go. And it didn't take me long, but after I sent it back to him, he was like, "You want me to pay you for this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how much?" And he's like, "You want me to send you like $200-300?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And after that, it was like, I wonder if I could do this again. I tried it again, and I don't know what it is about like the editing thing because my attention span is horrific. It's just I have no attention span, but for some reason I have a talent for picking out things, and uh, it's been a successful, yeah, it's been a successful adventure so far, and I kind of like with the author thing, I'm not sure how it all happened.
That is so cool. So
Yeah,
what kind of prices do you charge for your publishing? So that sounds like you go through and then you kind of give them feedback on structure, maybe confusing parts, things that maybe seem like they don't fit in the story, or that are left
yeah,
open-ended or whatever. Do you also go in and like actually like fix their spelling and their grammar and
yeah. I call it like what I call it is proofreading on steroids. Because if you go to hire like an editor, you have the copy editor, the developmental editor, line editor. It's like there's so many kinds of editors, and it's just like it like I don't want to be pompous enough to call it my own way, but that's kind of what it is.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, like if something is wrong, like if there's formatting problems, I'll say that. I'll say, hey, like this has to be this way. Spelling, absolutely. Contractions, I'm constantly telling people like, look, you got to stop every single person. It's like these contractions, they have to go. They're no good. But then yeah, if there's like there have actually been parts where on the second job I have, I'm like, look, this whole chapter doesn't make sense. Like it has to go. So I kind of do everything, and on top of that, and this isn't, I mean, eventually, I don't know if I start taking on a ton of clientele, if this is going to be something I'm going to be able to continue doing. But another kind of concessional thing that I do, I'm like, look, after you pay me and the job's done, I'm not just going to turn out the lights, like, especially because um, the people that I am that are hiring me, they're all people who I'm, friends with. So I'm not just hiring, someone's not just hiring me, I don't know them. I don't know, if I can trust them. I'm hiring people who I'm friends with, excuse me. And I kind of tell them like, when we're done with this, I'll help you promote the book. I mean, even if that's just, as simple as sharing something or just saying, if it comes out like, hey, check this person out. I've helped people with covers, just so I do throw in a lot of tiny extra things because I'm not the kind of person who's just going to take your money and be like, okay, I did the job, I'm going to turn off the power and we'll like almost everyone will come back to me, after it's published and they'll ask me questions like, how do I do like an audiobook? And I'm like, okay, like this is what you do, da 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 da. Publishing questions, questions about, like, like I have a friend who went on a podcast and she's like, I don't, like I need help with that. Just, um, I've had two different people call me their mentor, and that is um, like I feel like a Jedi or something. I'm like training a younger Jedi, and that's just and obviously I can't do that for everyone, but I've been helping a lot of new authors because I think every author I've done some editing work for so far, I think almost all of them, it's been their first publishing. So, I mean, I want to help them. I don't want to just take their money and, do the job and then, proof I'm done. But as far as charging prices, that I really don't have a system yet. I like all I can say is that it doesn't cost as much as if you went on a site like and found an author. Like and I'll say that almost every time. I'll be like, look, this is the price that I'm charging. and again, I mean, even what I charge, the economy is tough. If I'm asking someone for, $400 or $500, that's still not chump change. I mean, um, but compared to paying, $2,000, like I kind of put that into perspective for them. I'm like, look, I'm charging you basically a third to a quarter of what you would be charging, and you're getting some extra stuff.
That's a
So
fact because I looked
yeah,
into it.
same thing. Like I was like, because that was my huge problem with my first two novels. Like I edited them and I didn't edit them enough, and it was like I don't even really promote them anymore just because they're kind of like my two stepchildren who I have chained up in the attic. It's like, no, they're not like they don't exist. Sorry. Um, and yeah, I just it's
It helps to have another set of eyes look at your work. Like
yeah, and I
when
know
I
like
read
a lot of
recently did some audiobook recording and I have to go back and I have to edit the F out of that book because it's terrible.
yeah.
It's terrible.
Well, like one thing I always do when I'm kind of in the final phases where I'll do a couple, you know, run throughs where it's just my eyes, but I will always have one where I do the text to speech on, like The Office, and every single time it's like, whoops, I missed that, I missed that, I missed that. Because yeah, the same thing. Like I've part of the reason I kind of started this is that I mean I'm friends with a lot of people in the indie community. If they have like an audio or like an ebook, I'm trying to support them. And I found at least one or two situations where there were so many small things that could have been fixed. I ended up putting it down, and I really don't want that to happen. For someone like you shouldn't have to forego like an editor because you see it and it's like $2,000. No, I can't. No, like you should, if you're going to be putting something out there that will be, potentially on the shelf forever, it's worth making sure it's perfect. And just, I mean, aside from having people pay me, that makes me feel awesome. Like seeing somebody come out with their first novel and the finished product is it's polished and it's the way that 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 like they're happy with that. It's something that you can't pay. It feels awesome. I want to help people. I want their finished product to be perfect, especially if it's got my name on it.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I love
Yeah.
it. So how does your family feel about your work and your authoring and all of that?
Yeah, one of the coolest things was when my son, I guess he had a career day in first grade or second grade or something, and I mean, he's able to go in and be like, my daddy's an author. And no other kid in the class is. I mean, again, I'm not taking away from the things that other people do, but it was a source of pride. Just being like, my dad's an author. He writes these. They're very supportive. My 5-year-old has told me she wants to be an author, so that's. I'm
Oh.
trying to tell her, don't find something that pays good. Don't be an author. Don't be an author. Um, and yeah, my wife has been incredibly supportive. She's helped me with my covers, and she helps me with my finances with this. And it's just she actually helped me troubleshoot Zoom before I came on. So
That's
yeah, yeah, just incredibly supportive. My father, he wanted to be like a writer too, but this is in the age of typewriters. They didn't have self-publishing, and he didn't get to publish his his work before he passed away when I was 13, and that just kind of always stuck in my head. Like he's gone, this manuscript is here that like he put so much time into, nobody is ever going to read it. That was and yeah, I mean, again, it was not the same time. It was much harder to be an author, but I didn't want to write a ton and then feel like at the end of my life that ship sailed and
Mm,
I missed it, you know?
yeah,
Um, I I want my stuff to be published. I want it to be out there. Um, yeah, they've been incredibly supportive. My mom's and my sister, um they're they're very proud of me. They can say, "Oh, you know, he's an author." So yeah, yeah, everyone's been very supportive. Yeah, they've been great.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of touched on your ideal dream would be to be home writing all day, every day.
Yes. If
That's
I
my
could
dream
just
too.
if I could just roll out of roll out of sleep at whatever time, make a cup of coffee and just get paid to just spew whatever nonsense is coming out of my head, if that would be fantastic. That would if that happened, I really don't know what else out of life I would want. Like I don't even have to be rich. I mean, I would take it obviously, but yeah, when I'm home and I'm writing or when I'm, fixing somebody else's, you know, stuff for them, I really feel like that's where I'm firing on all cylinders. I'm not at my job, checking the clock every 5 minutes. Like, oh, can I go home yet? Can I go home? I feel like, I could sit down and just write for 16 hours. Like, I mean, I go and I work 40 hours a week and I come home every day and I write. The writing never feels like a job, ever. And, another cliche thing, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. That's kind of what it feels like. And, if I could somehow get enough steady, sales and constantly having enough clients, man, I would love to not have to go make somebody else, be an employee for someone else because it's becoming old and I just want to do this. That's it. I don't really care about anything else. I just want to write and be involved with my author friends and my family.
So you write every day. Do you ever feel writer's block?
No, that's I know I did have a period from like 2016 to 2019 after I published my second novel. There was kind of a lull in it. It was like, I mean, I my second child had come along, so obviously I was tied up with that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of was going through like an identity crisis. Like, well, I published two books. I'm not a famous author yet. What am I doing? Or do I want to do this? That was really the only lull I've had. I do have the privilege of having just so many, work in progresses. Like I have a pile of them to where if I'm on something and I get tired of something or I feel like I'm stuck on something, I immediately have something else to be like, okay, I'll be into this for the next 6 months or so. I always have things to switch. Um, Creatively, yeah, like there are times when I'm like, okay, I don't really have any fresh, like super fresh, like, wow, I just thought of this, I have to get it down. But there's always something to either tweak or fix. And that, like always ends up, when those start turning, the creativity just kind of ends up happening. It's like, oh, while I'm fixing up this chapter, maybe I'll add this or change this about this character. So, yeah, I just always have so much stuff on like the back of the stove. I, I probably have enough work in progresses till I'm, in my 50s. I'm 42 now, so I have thought about that. Like, what if I run out of work in progresses? But I haven't had to cross that bridge yet, and I really hope I never do. But
That's
for
really
anyone,
interesting.
yeah,
Like
whenever
you
someone
switch
said
to something else if you start to feel like, oh, I'm not feeling this, then you just switch to another project.
yes, because like you can, like if you ever go to like a concert where you can tell one person in the band is just kind of checked out or they're angry at someone and they're just kind of like going through the motions and the finished product ends up kind of suffering. For me, that's one of the hugest pitfalls I can do. If I'm forcing it, like, yeah, if I'm writing something on a timeline, or I'm like, okay, I have to write this by this time, or I have to write this many words by this time, okay, like I can put my nose to the grindstone and just make it happen. But as far as the creative process goes, the worst thing that I can do is force something. Um, I have tried that, and then I went back to it, and the finished product shows. And it's like, okay, now this is going to be more editing for me, more time, chopping things up, figuring it out. And that ends up consuming more time than just kind of not doing it. And so it's like putting it off to the side, starting something else. That that's how I avoid that pitfall, because, like I said, I have forced it before, and the results were never good. So anytime someone asks me about writer's block, that's what I say. Like, look, it doesn't matter how small a side project is. It could be a poem that's a half a page long. If you're feeling that and that's what's coming out of you, and you're you know being constructive, it doesn't matter what you're doing, and you'll come back to that. You'll be fresh. You know what I mean?
Hmm. That's
So
awesome. Yeah, if I'm not feeling a project, I'll usually walk away and I'll like wash dishes or water
yeah,
the plants, or I'll do something just to turn it off. And
yeah,
and like you, with when you're on a timeline, I usually usually I'm working on one project at a time. So right now I'm working on a book about intimacy. And so whenever I go to write, if I have to get through it because I'm on a timeline, then I just write through it.
yeah,
I give myself permission to write pure shit and then
yeah.
go back and edit it. Otherwise, I might not do it if I didn't.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's a very fine line, because it's like, well, do I want to force it or don't I want to force it? It's like, well, if if someone's like, I need this by now, like, okay, but like you said, you're just kind of just writing shit at that point. But if that's what they want and you're getting paid for it, great. But the worst thing that you can do is force it, because you'll be able to tell the people that you're trying to entertain, they'll be able to tell, and it's gonna, like, eventually end up creating more of something for you to clean up later, and that's just, it's not worth it.
Do you write
It's what
anything other than fiction or mostly just fiction?
I yeah, I tried doing a little bit of nonfiction, but something about it, to me, it's very robotic, I guess. Like, there's not a lot of, I don't know. I think fiction is just my thing. Like, I've had like a ton of friends say, like, oh, if I only wrote a story about my life. Um, I feel like, for me, I'm a big fiction person. Like, if someone has a story to tell and they're gonna write, like an autobiography, a memoir, like, great. Like, if you have a story to tell, tell it. For me, I feel like if I can't take, say, an experience in my life, or a friendship, or a relationship, or something like that, if I can't turn that and kind of turn it into something made up, it doesn't really work for me. I don't know. It's like when J.R. Tolkien went away. He fought in like World War I, which was obviously a terrible experience. He could have come back and been like, "All right, I'm just going to write about my experience in the war." Instead, he wrote The Hobbit. It's like, that's always kind of the example I use. If I can't turn it into something fictitious, um, I just can't write it. I, I just I've kind of tried, like, oh, it'd be cool if I wrote, a story about my life, but I feel like, honestly, unless you're like a very, very interesting person who's had a lot of very diverse experiences, Um, you know, how am I going to sell that to, you know what I mean? Like, unless I'm like a serial killer or like a rock star, like I
I'm
don't
a
see
sex
how.
worker.
That's why I'm trying to kind of like tiptoe around it, because I know you're writing a memoir and it's like you should, like, I read part of it, like you have what it takes for that. You have,
Thank
yeah,
you.
like like when I try to explain you to people, it's like, yeah, she's an author, but she's like a coach, like a relationship coach, you know, like you're very, there's a lot of sides to you. It's not just like,
I'm an
and
onion.
you have, yeah, but there's a lot to you. And when a lot of people, yeah, like when a lot of people say, "Oh man, if I wrote a story about my life," like it's like I don't think anyone is gonna read it. Like you're like a mechanic and like an alcoholic. Like it's not like you're like, how are you gonna sell that to someone? Like, but again, it's like another thing. It's a fine line. If somebody has a story that's inside them and they're like, I have to tell this, tell it, by all means.
Can
But
you oh, sorry.
no,
I
God,
was gonna ask you to describe your process. So I mean, I have my own process because I've also written some fiction.
yeah,
So when you're when you have an idea for something you want to write, a fiction piece of literature,
mhm,
what is your process? Do you start with an outline? Do you start with your characters? Do you like something I do is I'll write and I'll do like kind of an outline, but then I'll start writing my ideas in point form and I'll keep the point form at the end of my story and then I'll delete each point as I write it to help me kind of go through it. But I'm curious what your
yeah.
process is.
That I'll be honest, that sounds a lot like what the process I do. I'm so happy that you mentioned characters. Characters are, for me, the absolute cornerstone. Um, we all can, think of examples of a film or a novel where you didn't really quite care for it, but there was a character in it that kind of stuck with you. And you can't really have it the other way around. So the characters are like the floor. Like that's where I start, and 9 times out of 10, it just kind of writes itself. Um, but I do my first two novels, I did the pantsing thing where you just, and people who can write that way, God bless them. I cannot. I'm very controlled. I do like an outline. I call it a chapter skeleton. It's like, this and this happens and this happens and this happens, fill in all the rest and then take out the outline. Um, because there will always be things that you have to go back for. It's like, it's just, yeah. So I will almost always start the outline, just kind of do chapter by chapter, and I don't know about you, but it seems like all of my greatest ideas are the ones that end up, having the most playtime in my stuff. Tends to always happen when I'm not in front of the computer doing my job. I'll be out at Wawa or at my job or driving down the road. So I constantly, like, I have this little pad in my phone, and if I don't write it down, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly, it I feel like I don't ever turn off the author switch. I wake up in the morning, I think about, like, okay, I have to, complete this. I have to complete this. I got my job, my family, but everything else is just kind of like I'm always writing, even when I'm not. When I go on vacation, I bring it all day. Like, I don't bring all my stuff, but I always bring something. I'm never not doing it. And that does sound like something where it would burn someone out, but I don't know. I can't ever stop. That's
Not if it
all.
energizes you.
I can't stop. Like if I'm not actually sitting there writing, there's always something else to write. Like, oh, it'd be cool if this scene, this scene, and that, going back to jumping from project to project, that helps me write that way because, if something comes, you got to strike when the iron's hot
Totally.
and just do it then, do it there. But
I
yeah, just kind
consider
of
the best holidays to be writing holidays personally.
like seriously, yeah, like going on vacation, like my ideal vacation is just like I would love to just stay home for a week in, my nice cool house with nobody bothering me. I don't have to worry about work. I don't have to like plan stuff. Like I can't imagine I'm super fun to be married to because I'm just like I just kind of like staying home and writing. But I'm not ever on vacation from this, and I don't know what it is. I don't get tired. I just don't. I don't
Yeah, me
understand it.
neither.
But yeah. So I'm very character based. I'd say, 3/4 of my work is characters. Everything else can just fall into place. The characters, and then from there, like the
That's what
character
I
and
do
the
too.
outline, I don't need anything else. Just build the characters. If you know what that character is like, how
Yes,
he sounds, what he wants, what he hates, you can build a whole story just around that. You
you
don't have to
can.
create. Yeah.
And
So
when
I
you
mean,
get
the
to a part,
story.
you're like, what should happen now? Well, look at the characters in that scene. What would this character do based on their hates and their fears and their
Yep.
loves and their flaws, And then
Right.
and that's the exciting thing I find when I'm writing fiction is because then that will make me go, "Oh my God. Now I have to go back and change this because now I have a way better idea for that section." And then the whole
Yeah.
ending can like start to shift a little and I
Yeah.
try to say to people like I when I plan out an outline, some of the stuff I might know exactly what's going to happen, but usually I just know the result of what's going to happen and then I build
Yep.
what happens as I go and I have no idea like how are they going to get out of this situation? This is like impossible, but then I have to come up with a way, right? Because that's the way the story has to go and that's the plan. It's
Yeah. It's so
so
much fun.
challenging.
Just yeah. It's just yeah. I don't know. I just if like these things just kind of come to life on their own. It's and yeah, that's like a lot of times when I'll be, fixing someone else's work, I'll find a lot of parts where it's like, like this seems like not in character for this person, or why would they do this if this is the way they think? So yeah, characters are just everything. They're everything. Like you can't read a book. Like you can have the greatest, most creative story, ever created. If you don't have characters there to kind of, spirit you along, it, it's just, you're not going to have anything. It's you like you need those characters. It's like having a huge, like a mansion. If you don't have people to
Mhm.
fill in the spaces, it's going to be completely empty.
How do you
Yeah.
uh like do you, this is a question I have because in my fiction novels a lot of my characters are based on real life people I know. And I could be totally wrong about like what their fears and loves, etc. are and maybe being right off character, but they're what I think that those people are like personally. So, and so then when I'm writing, often it's really easy for me because I imagine them to look like these people in my lives and my life and how I kind of see them. And
Mhm.
you do that as well?
That's so funny that you mentioned that. That is like, it kind of makes me appreciate like the small things about people because yeah, like there are people who are like, oh, it'd be cool if you put me into your novel. It's like, well, I'm probably going to take things that you say and, like the tiny little things that you do. But yeah, just like one example, like I used to work at a tractor trailer place, and there was this like old driver who used to always come in, and just a truck driver, and just the things that he used to say, and like the little tidbits of like, like these things coming from somebody who, I mean, it like on its face, it doesn't seem like a terribly interesting, a truck driver, but it's just these tiny little things about people, or like, people who I was, uh, former employees I used to work with. They're like, oh, this salesman, it'd be cool if there was a salesman kind of, yeah, just, I do that all the time, all the time. Like almost to the point where I'm like, maybe I should tell this person, like, hey, I'm basically stealing your personality and trying to make a profit off of it. But they're always cool about it. Yeah, and yeah, it's not always the positive things too. It's like things about people, like working in customer service is like, all right, I have to write a scene with a very like, like entitled, like, like a total Karen
Mhm.
at the coffee shop. And it's like, well, I do actually kind of have a little tidbit from this person. So yeah, just the smallest people in your life can create these characters who end up being um so like such a large part of something. And in a strange way it makes me appreciate just random people. I don't want to say simple people. It's like, oh, they're not super smart. Like it's just just like people that you see every day. It kind of makes me just appreciate the small things about them, like the stupid things that they say or stories that they tell. It's just yeah, there isn't ever somebody too large or too small where I'm taking a piece of them and creating like somebody else. Like you absolutely smashed that one on the head. That's
That's
yeah.
awesome. I've always wanted to ask another writer if they do that.
Yeah, like just some of the stuff that my son says, it's like, dude, you're so odd. Like I'm gonna put this in a book now, and like people are not gonna have any idea where this is coming from. And it's like, oh, my 10-year-old said it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah, kids say hilarious things, and that's awesome that you put them in your book. I
Yep.
actually started writing fiction for my children, and I based my main characters on my children.
Yeah.
So I got, because it was a fantasy fiction, I actually asked them, "What kind of superpowers do you want to have?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a pretty cool way to include them in my writing. But my first book took me, I think, 3, maybe even almost 4 years. No, at least 2 or 3 years, because I started the pants, the
Hmm.
writing by the seat of my pants. I just didn't
Yeah.
really know what to do, and then
Yeah.
I adjusted my style and learned as I went. But my second book was, I wrote it so much faster, so much tighter, and so much better, because
Yeah.
I started with the outline and then the characters, because I learned so much from the first experience.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's so funny. Like I'm actually creating something now. It's very similar to like the never ending story, and both of the kids in it are kind of taken from them. So that's about as close to the chest I've played it, but I'm kind of doing the same thing. They're kind of like they'll end up in a book too. So
Yeah, that's
I
awesome.
told them, and they're like, "Oh, that's so awesome." I didn't like this. So
So
hopefully
do
we'll
you
get that
have
going.
one particular project that you're really in love with right now, that is the next, book that you're going to publish, or anything in particular that you want to share with us that you're working on that's pretty exciting?
Yeah, I've actually been querying a like a 90,000 word novel, which is probably the most talented thing I've ever written, but it's also the book that I hate the most. It's something that like it's hard to explain. Like when you're a mechanic or a police officer, with certain stuff, like you do a job and you can put those tools away and they're gone. Sometimes when you dig down and you go certain places and you use the tools that aren't necessarily from like a sunny, friendly place, um, it can be hard. Like this book, actually, when I was done it, I was like, I need to go back into therapy. Like this book screwed me up. But at the same time, it's like probably the greatest thing I've ever written. It's concise. It's eventually I think I will end up self-publishing it because um I mean I've been querying it. I think I'm at 40 some rejections, which isn't a lot, but a part of me is just like, man, I just want to put this out there. But aside from that, I have another story coming out. It's called the Doral Song. It's there's like an off-world experiment. They're trying to terraform a planet to make it habitable for humans, and all the colonists die. They don't understand why. It's kind of like a thriller, sci-fi horror. A team gets sent back to kind of find out what happened. Um, I'm at about 45,000 words with that. I maybe in like a year, I don't know. But that said, I could start that today and be like, you know what, I think I'm going to put this on the back and create something else. I have so many, things in progress. Um, but that's kind of the thing that I have the closest to being finished. All the other stuff is just kind of, in the 15,000 word kind of development phases. Um, so yeah, I don't really, sadly, well, not sadly because I'm getting paid for it, but like the editing has kind of taken away from being able to write. For a while at least. I've actually pretty recently have been like, okay, I'm just gonna do like two chapters of editing and stop, and then I'm gonna work on my stuff because I am finding that um I'm starting to slow down with the creative process, which I don't want to stop publishing books, but I don't want to stop editing either, you know. So yeah, I am trying to get my next one out, but it could be a while, and
Sounds like you're taking the right steps, though. I mean, you're working on a side business that will slowly decrease the um, dependence that you have on your. I was going to call it a square job on your regular job.
that's what it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and and then you're focusing on your writing, and I can totally relate to how hard that is when you have a family and a job, and like with me, job, family, health issues. There's always something that I could make an excuse why I don't write or why I didn't write.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I don't it's not that I don't want to make excuses, it's that I really want to write. So, if I have to, I'll get up at 5 in the morning so that I can spend an hour writing every day or whatever it is. And I have found myself like I've been working on like one chapter a week for the book that I'm working on, and I haven't been writing every day, but I've been spreading myself a little bit thin because now I've got the podcast, I've got, so many different things going, but
yeah,
that is the hardest part of loving a creative thing in our lives. And if we're not making enough money yet with that creative thing to make it our one and only thing, then we have
yeah,
spread ourselves thin. And then, of course, like every day I'm trying to focus on editing my audiobook. And every day my kids are like, Mom, can you do this? Mom, can you do that? And I'm like, one of my values is my family comes first. And so then I put it off,
yes,
put it off, and put
yep.
it off. And I'm like, oh
Mhm.
God, I have so much to do. But yeah, this is the struggle of
Yeah, I can't
earned
count how many
dollars.
times. Yeah, like I can't count how many times like I'm on something, and my 5-year-old will come up, and I don't ever want to say like, no, I can't. I don't have time for you. Like I will always stop. Just I don't. I don't want to be like, no, I don't have time for you. I don't want to plant that seed. It's just
Same. Yeah.
so it's hard. It's hard to find time, and
Something I've done with my
this
kids is because we're all creative, and I'm sure your children will be too, because I feel like it is kind of a hereditary. When you raise children in a house where you're being creative, they learn to be creative. And I think
yeah,
everyone has the capacity, but a lot of people don't have the safe space to express it or even understand how
yeah,
to how to express it because they didn't have anyone showing them when they were growing up. But your children do, and my children do, and so with my children, we've got a code word that or a sentence that we say, I'm in creative mode. And whenever one of us says that, they don't have to come and sit down for dinner. They don't have to go to bed. They don't have to, stop what they're doing and help with the groceries. maybe, maybe
That's
not.
good.
But
Yeah, that's
it's
good.
only at those moments when you're like right in that moment, like you're in creative mode. And so like you probably, I'm sure when you're writing and you've got your idea and you're just your fingers are flying on the keyboard and it's right there and it's so good and you don't want to stop, and then your kid walks up, and mine are old enough now, it'd probably be harder for you, but you could start
Yeah.
to teach them, daddy's in creative mode, could you hold on one moment? And that's what I did with mine. And now we can all say, I'm in creative mode right now. My kids, Mom, I'm in creative mode. Okay, fine, I'll bring your dinner to you. you know
It's a good system though.
I think it
It
works.
encouraged. Yeah, I mean, it like it's encouraging to them, and it's you're all kind of on the same page as creators. That's awesome.
It's in the same philosophy of Montessori, that you don't interrupt people when they're focused on something that excites them, or that
Yeah,
they're interested in, and how switching kids from one subject to the next when they're really engaged in the first one is actually really not very good for their learning.
yeah, yep,
So I think like it's the same for any kind of creative venture, I think.
right, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're drawing close to the end of this podcast. I would love to know, like, what are your plans for the future? Do you have something in particular, like plan? Like, I know I've already asked you this question in a lot of different ways, so I'm trying to explain what I have in my head here. How about you just describe your dream life? Your dream life. Let's say that you make enough money to leave your square job and you are writing, and maybe you have an editing company too. Is that something that you would want, or would you like, what would your dream life be? Where would you be living? Would you be living in the same place? Just curious.
No, oh God, if I could, like, there's not a lot I would change about my personal life, but if I could be from somewhere else that's not New Jersey, like that would be incredible. Like somewhere, like I want to move somewhere cold and not that crowded. I know that sounds so weird, but I'm just like, I hate the heat. I hate being in a crowded place where it's expensive. Like, I would love to not live around here. It's just, but I'm stuck, unfortunately,
So
for
that's
a
one of
while.
your goals. That's one of your goals.
Yeah, I just like I don't, but that's the thing. I don't really have like a certain place. I just if I could move somewhere, I don't know, like maybe I don't know, like Canada, maybe. I don't know. I don't really want
We
to
should switch because I
leave
love
the
the heat.
country. Really? Oh, I hate the heat. I can't do it. I'm like 99% Irish, so I burn. But no, I would it's funny that you said that. I'm actually kind of at the point now with my editing where um I actually am probably going to have to start some kind of company just because it's just the amount of work that's coming in and um I mean I probably make 90% of my profits from the editing job, and it's just I want to just my dream job would just be that, just have a little office at home, not have to punch somebody else's time clock and put profits in their pocket. I'm sure one day I'll be a grandfather. It'd be cool to just be there all the time for that. And for my children as well. It would just be nice to just be at home. I'd be able to, do my editing thing. And I mean, if I didn't have to work, 40, 50 hours at my other job, the balance of the editing and the creative process, it wouldn't be a problem because I would have all that time. I wouldn't have to be like, oh, I have to be up at 5 o'clock and I'll be home at, 3 in the afternoon.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I am kind of there now. I kind of have like, almost everything in line. I talked to my attorney. He's like, this is what you got to do. You got to do this. You got to do this. I'm kind of where I was when I was publishing my first book. I gotta pull the trigger. And it's just like he's like, call me. It'll take like an hour, possibly over the phone. Couple $100. We'll get your tax ID, and you'll be, so soon. That's just, I mean, again, I can make excuses to, oh, I don't have time for this. But,
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah,
That's really exciting. I'm so glad that you're on the
man,
verge, and like you say, you don't
yeah,
want to pull the trigger, but you will, and then
yeah,
like I'm living in a basement suite, single mom, like we're living, frugally. But I have dreams. I don't think this is going to be like I'm going to struggle financially for the rest of my life. I don't feel like that's my future. I feel like I'm taking the steps one step at a time, and it does require a process. So like your first step is to see, do people want my publishing services? Hell yeah, they do. Okay, well, this is a good sign. So now maybe I'll start my own company on the side of my job so that and now you're making really good money because you've got more money coming in than just your job. And then
yeah.
slowly you can phase out the other job. I mean, that's perfect.
So
And then
that,
then you're like, oh wow, I'm making so much money. I could live anywhere because of my work. So where do I want to live?
yeah,
It's great.
yeah. It's just, like, it just kind of like I have to be in, it's like a right time and like a right place thing. Like the editing thing just kind of happened by accident because of, a friend of a friend who is like, and now, I'm considering starting a company. It's just, I'm always trying to put myself in the most opportune position, which is why I started all these podcasts. And well, not like, oh, this is only my second one, but I'm trying to get myself out there more because the hardest part about this is like the marketing part. It is like I'm sure that like we could just have like a 2 hour conversation just about that. We try to
Yeah.
market your stuff. It is there's no quick way, and it's just we're kind of in a society where it's like we want things like like immediately. It's like, okay, I have this song, I could be famous overnight. There's no quick path to becoming like an established author. Like you have to push your stuff. Not just that, but you have to become part of the author community, which like aside from selling and expressing myself has been my greatest pleasure about this job. People like you and the people like I did the podcast with last night. I mean, a lot of these people who I'm doing, jobs for, I mean, these are people who I will probably end up talking to for the rest of my life. Like we have each other's phone numbers now. We're checking in on each other. We're talking about our families. It's so awesome to have a community. Like I have my other, Facebook page where it's like, my friends and family. I really don't go on that anymore. I'm so involved with, this community of people who are so helpful and encouraging. And there have been very, very few bad experiences with, these hundreds and hundreds of people. Everyone, it's strangely non-toxic. I'm not accustomed to it. Like there's always you kind of peel it back and it's like, oh, okay, underneath it's kind of, but um, just yeah, becoming
Yeah,
part
I
of this
agree. The author
community.
community is just amazing. So supportive,
It's
kind, like, oh,
yeah, like
I
I want to
always
just
nervous that
build.
I won't be accepted because I come from the adult entertainment industry. And so I was really surprised at how I've been welcomed by the author community on Facebook. So
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we love you. It's yeah. You're yeah. It's very interesting to see like someone who is very. I don't know if eccentric is the word for you, but there's not like another. Yeah, there's not like two of you. It's like oh, there's like her, but then there's this other person. There's just kind of you, and you kind of do your own thing, and um, that's what kind of like attracted me to start talking to you. It's like wow, she is very like you have a lot of tears to you and there's a lot it's just there's so many interesting people in this community and
And I
I
was
wish I would
attracted
have got
talking to you because you're so friendly, outgoing, your
yeah
posts funny. You
I'm
pushed
weird. Yeah.
the
I'm
envelope
like,
a little bit, which I really appreciate.
yeah, I don't know what it is. It's I was always kind of a class clown back in school and social media, like I mean, even though I'm 42, it's like I just want to go on there and act stupid. Just just like post things that's gonna be like, oh my God, that's horrible, or that's, it's just I don't know what it is. I'll always be like the class clown at heart.
It
And
works for you. It's wonderful because it makes you very approachable and it makes people feel safe with you. I love that. I immediately felt like safe with you because the way that you interact and then also uh you help facilitate other authors finding me and me finding other authors, and I just love
yeah,
that. That's a wonderful, and that's a wonderful thing to do when you're starting a publishing company. So I think that you just have the natural qualities to make it work for you. It's amazing.
I hope so. Yeah, I just yeah, like I've been working at like, trailer jobs and like mechanic jobs. And I'm just like, why am I doing this, man? Like, I wish I could have, I don't know, like maybe I should have finished school or I don't know. But then again, if I went, down that path, maybe I'd be doing, something else. It's very hard. Like there are things I wish I would have changed,
Mhm.
to set myself up. But I mean, I guess that's it, that's like with everyone, the regrets of, the
At
regrets of
42 is
being
young. You've
mature.
got lots of time.
Uh,
You have
I don't,
lots of
as
time.
soon
You
as I hit 40, I'm like, well, this is it.
Hey, I just turned 50 in January. God, it feels like yesterday. I guess it's been all over 6 months,
Yeah,
but I feel like I've got at least 20 or 30 years to make a
have fun.
difference and
Yeah.
reach my goals. And so you have 8 more years than I do.
Uh, but yeah, I just, yeah, like I wish I would have put myself into a better spot. I wish I would have started this earlier. I wish I would have, but at the same time, there's no guarantee that the path would have been the same. I could have started and then gotten tired of it, and I'd be doing something else now. And it's just, hindsight's always 2020, and it's hard to not look back and be like, man, I'd be so much better if I knew now, what
Yeah,
I
if
knew.
only we knew then what we know now. This has
So
been a
cliche,
really
but yeah.
awesome interview, and I've so enjoyed, like, we've gone a little over time just because you're so interesting, and I appreciate it.
Oh,
This has
thank
been
you.
awesome, and I love vibing off your writing experience because, it's rare that I talk to people who follow through and write a whole book and especially
Mm,
fiction. Like I have some
yeah.
friends who have written nonfiction, but it's rare to talk to someone else who loves writing fiction too. So that's been wonderful. How can people find you?
I am mostly active on Facebook. When I have my publishing company in mind, I am going to start my own site, just like, I am on TikTok too, but there's not a lot of things in this life where like I have it and I'm like, wow, I feel kind of old. It's very, I don't know, like TikTok makes me feel old. Like I feel
Me too.
it's very like it's very like chew it up and spit it out, which that's kind of where we're at, mentality wise. So I am on there. I don't really know what I'm doing. I,
Mhm.
I just, but I am on there, but mostly on Facebook. I mean, I'm on there about, 22 hours a day, so um, you can always find me on there.
And I'll post a
If
link to your Facebook page under this.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure my email address is on there. If anybody's looking for any editing work, you can, send me the word count, the genre, what it's about. I can give you a price or, tell you if I'm interested or not. Or yeah, so that's pretty much it. Facebook, TikTok, and you can email me. I don't know.
Sounds good. And what's your email? Do you want to just say it out loud?
Yep, it's W Burkhardt at live.com.
Burkhardt. Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming to join the Fearless Living podcast and share your wonderful self with us.
Yeah, if you ever want me to come back and talk to you, it's always an absolute pleasure to talk with you in person and on Facebook. You're awesome, and yeah, I would
Thank
I would
you.
love to come back. I would love to come back anytime.
Awesome. Definitely. Mwah.
Ah.
I'm Annie Temple, the erotic entrepreneur. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much.